Hello and welcome to Prince in the City. I am your host, Prince, and today's show I have Mr. Leland Cheung. He is City Councilor at large in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and he is the most voted candidate in Massachusetts in recent history. Leland, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you.
And let's go ahead and start the conversation by introducing yourself and telling us why you are running for Lieutenant Governor.
Yeah. Reasons I'm running for Lieutenant Governor, pretty much the same reasons I ran for the City Council in Cambridge in the first place. In 2009, I'd been working in the technology industry, investing in companies that were creating jobs, improving the community, and literally inventing the future. And I ran because I'd been working in the tech sector, and every time I heard the council talk about entrepreneurship and small businesses and the innovation economy, quote unquote, they're saying, oh, it's so great we have Microsoft and Google here adding to the tax base. But no one was talking about the kids living literally 2 blocks away in public housing that weren't getting the support or the mentorship they needed to one day work at those companies. No one was talking about the entrepreneurs across the city, regardless if they had a GED, a PhD, or no degree at all, that had a great idea but didn't have the connections to the financing and mentorship that people coming out of MIT can take for granted. And ran on that platform, wound up winning, and about over the past 5 years in the council, have earned a reputation as one of the most progressive, productive, responsive members of the council. Had the first ever joint meeting between the Cambridge and Boston City Councils in the history of Boston and Cambridge. It was mind-blowing as even possible. But I wrote an op-ed criticizing the governor and Secretary of Economic Development over policies I thought were pitting cities against each other instead of encouraging us to work together. The governor's punishment was to appoint me to the board of our state's Economic Development Agency. And I've had the opportunity to travel around the state, investing in places from the Cape to Holyoke to the Berkshires to Lowell to Worcester, and realize that there's a huge amount of talent and potential across the entire Commonwealth, but that the same issues I ran for the City Council to try and address are the same challenges and opportunities we face across the Commonwealth. Namely, how do we make sure that everyone, every single person in every corner of the Commonwealth has access to a great education, great career opportunities, and everything that they need in order to get wherever they want in life. And that's why I'm running for Lieutenant Governor. That's what I want to focus on.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. So tell us, from my audience out there, what is a Lieutenant Governor and what makes you qualified to be a Lieutenant Governor?
Yeah. So I'm the most qualified. I was just endorsed by the Boston Globe.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it. As their choice for Lieutenant Governor. And my qualifications, I'm the only candidate who's worked in the private sector, having to manage a budget, manage people, grew that company from 0 to 40 million in revenue annually. I've worked in public office. I'm the only candidate who's worked over the last 5 years in elected office, and everything's changed over the last 10 years. And I've actually been serving residents of the Commonwealth and of Cambridge. So I'm the only person with not just talking points, but a track record. And I've worked at the state level. Every gubernatorial candidate is talking about trying to grow the tech economy. Right. I'm the only one who's actually worked in it. I'm the only one who's actually worked with Governor Patrick on expanding that opportunity to make it accessible to everybody. And I've worked at the national level too at the Department of Energy. My resume is probably a little bit too long to go into, but that's why I believe I'm the most qualified to be a productive partner for our next governor. Right. They have to worry about a million things, and I want to bring sustained attention and focus to the issues which matter over the long term for the residents of Massachusetts, namely reinvesting in each other, education, infrastructure, and not just jobs, but careers.
Oh, great, great. Well, so can you tell me a personal story that has led you to this monumental decision when you were probably in your bed just thinking one night, okay, am I going to run for Lieutenant Governor? Yeah. Is there some personal story you have?
Well, I serve at the will and pleasure of the people. I also serve at the will and pleasure of my wife. And we have a 1-year-old daughter. My daughter just turned 1 year old.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
And also I saw that video too of Magic Eggs. It's really cute.
Thank you. And we were talking about the kind of Commonwealth my daughter was going to grow in. I was approached and asked if I would think about running for Lieutenant Governor. And hadn't really been thinking about it, to be honest with you. But my wife believed that, and I believe, that I had more to offer to the Commonwealth and can help make a better Commonwealth for not just my daughter, but for every single child and every single family and every single resident across the entire state. And it was just some late night conversations with my wife that led me to decide to throw my hat in the ring. And we accomplished in 4 months what other candidates did in 4 years in terms of getting on the ballot. I'm now it's wild to think, but I'm the only person of color running for any office statewide. You know, given how far we think we've come and how progressive we think we are as a state, with Deval Patrick as the first African-American governor in Massachusetts, the second in the country, President Obama, to then think that we're going to have a complete lack of diversity in our elected officials for our statewide offices is shocking. And I would say that the reason I got into politics in the first place was my father actually immigrated to Massachusetts in 1969.
Right.
And he was living in Harvard Square, putting himself through school at Boston University, back when you could still afford to work part-time and put yourself through school. And the activism he saw on the streets was unlike anything he'd ever known before. And he was determined to instill in my sister and I an appreciation for the freedom and opportunity that democracy offers. And through regular trips to China to visit relatives still living there, I learned that my cousins can't just run for office. They can't criticize the governor as I did, or any elected official, without risking reprisal on themselves or the family. And they always taught me that, you know, you cannot have a government for the people, by the people, unless people take time to participate. And so they always taught me to take time to participate.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. So now, actually, speaking of racial diversity, it kind of goes into my next question. What will you do for racial diversity and also small businesses in Massachusetts?
Yeah. That's a compound, complex question. So, first of all, I think we need diversity in our elected representation to show people that the government reflects them and that they have a voice. And it's going to be an extension of what I've already done on the Cambridge City Council. I was the one who asked for the de-aggregation of statistics to make sure that we don't just have minorities and women, you know, well represented in terms of our population across the entire workforce, but at every level of management and every rung on the ladder. I was the one who I was honored to be named to the party's drafting committee for the party platform last year by Chairman John Walsh. Worked on more sections than anybody else except for the chair, and strongly advocated for a section on immigrants and minorities and people of low income and homeless. And the night before the book was supposed to go to print, I got a call and said, "Leland, we know you've been advocating on this. This has been one of the most talked about issues across any of the, across all the forums that we've had, but no one was assigned to write it because we assigned people based on what the sections were the previous year. But we need a new section." I said, "Send me what you got." I got home at 10 o'clock at night and had 200 pages of raw notes from people all across the Commonwealth, and it was like being in college again. I whittled that down as that paragraph in 8 bullets that was adopted at the convention. Amazing. There were like two typos that they fixed. I made sometime at like 6 o'clock in the morning. So I've been advocating for minorities, first-generation Americans, people of color, no matter what your diversity is, and I think that's important that Massachusetts continue to lead the way. We have to fight back against this national propaganda pushed by the right-wing media that every Muslim is a terrorist, every person of color is a thug, every woman is emotional, every Asian American is wealthy and good at math. You know, just look at Chinatown to realize it's not true. You know, they're actively pitting us against each other, and I believe that in order for us to have a government that actually represents the diversity of the people it's supposed to be representing, we need to stick together and work together, and I will continue to do that, and I have been doing that. To get to your second question on the second part was on
small business.
Small business, yeah. So I've been proud to have the support of local business. My mother owned a bakery growing up, so I know how impactful regulations from the state and local governments can be on whether or not a business succeeds or fails. I've earned a reputation on the Cambridge City Council as the go-to guy for locally owned businesses, working with Cambridge Local First. I moved all of our Cambridge tax base from a foreign bank back to a local community bank because that reinvests back in local businesses. And I have a lot of plans for the state level if I'm elected lieutenant governor. Everything from redoing how we do procurement to make sure we're favoring locally owned businesses that are employing people here and paying taxes here, making sure that we are putting in place regulations so that if you're a small business owner or a mobile business that's growing, you don't have to go to every single city in town, but we can have some standards that across the entire Commonwealth. My VC background, my small business history has made me, I think, very acutely aware of the challenges that small businesses and entrepreneurs go through, and willing to do whatever I can to solve them.
Great, well, thank you for that. So let's go into this. What is the first thing that the people of Massachusetts can expect from you when you do become lieutenant governor?
Well, the first thing, if I win the primary, is that I will work tirelessly to win in November. Because nothing I'm talking about is possible unless Democrats are elected in November. And I'm the only candidate in the race who's won tough elections. I'm the only person who's currently elected. So that's my first priority. Second priority, if we make it through November, is I want to establish satellite offices of the executive branch in all of our gateway cities, all of our metro hubs, from Springfield to Worcester to New Bedford to the Berkshires to the Cape, and personally staff them. Because I live close to Beacon Hill, it's easy for me to travel outwards and go and staff those locations and make sure that I'm not just representing people on Beacon Hill, but bringing Beacon Hill to the people.
Right. Okay, well now let's move away from politics. Let's talk about the campaign trail. I understand you're a father now, so tell me, what is it like, campaigning around Massachusetts and then also have a little girl? I mean, tell me about that.
It's tough. I won't lie. I've realized that politics is actually bad for the environment. We have all these politicians running around to the same places, all in their own cars. That's why we need rapid transit and more infrastructure investments in Massachusetts.
Right.
But it has taken a toll on the family. It's tough to balance all those priorities and make sure I'm there for my daughter, make sure I'm there for my wife. I wish I had 36, 48 hours in the day.
Right.
But it's a big state, and I do have a lot of, my first priority is always to my family and to my daughter and making sure that I'm there for them.
That's great. Well, you won't believe this, Leland. While we were talking, I managed to receive some questions from Twitterverse. And I have 3 from Nate Richardson. And if you can please just narrow it down to 1 to 2 minutes for each question. So here's the first question. How is Leland Cheung going to leverage his tech/private sector experience to help the rest of Massachusetts outside Boston/Cambridge?
Yeah. Well, I think if you look, my tech background means that I have the credentials and the expertise. The fact that I can go into Google and talk to the CEO of our local headquarters here and talk about coding my own Android phone just gives me a basis of knowledge and respect that I think other candidates just don't enjoy. And I'm able to leverage that into expanding the economy throughout Massachusetts. I will also say that I think each of the candidates has talked about redefining the role of lieutenant governor, but it all comes from their prior experience. One candidate is talking about the lieutenant governor being a chief marketing officer and going out and finding companies to bring in. I believe that we have everything we need right here to be the most competitive state in not just the country but the world. And so I don't need expensive international trips in order to do that. Another candidate is talking about being an ombudsman. And helping people navigate problems within our government. I'm not interested in helping people navigate problems. I'm interested in solving the problems. I'm interested in making sure that people don't have the problems in the first place. And so I'm going to use my background as an investor, as somebody who was in venture capital, is thinking about how do we reroute it in terms of investing in communities, investing in people, investing in infrastructure, because that's going to pay dividends. And the place we're going to have the most growth, the most potential to help people, is going to be in the places and people across the state that have frankly felt left behind. So my whole vision is about investing in one another and recognizing that if your neighbor paints and improves their home, your home value goes up. It's the same thing with the Commonwealth. If we invest in one another, we all benefit.
Right. And I have another one here. Let me show you. I need to wrap this up. So he's asking me.
Yeah.
This is from Michael Sherry.
Yeah.
He says this, what does he mean when he calls himself a fiscal progressive?
Yeah, fiscal progressive. So one of my competitors for the Democratic nomination for lieutenant governor on September 9th described himself as socially liberal but fiscally conservative. And we're at a forum, and I thought to myself, that makes no sense, because there's a big difference between being fiscally conservative and fiscally prudent. Cambridge spends more money on social services than any other per capita, yet we have the lowest tax rate of any big city. We not only have a balanced budget, we have $120 million in the bank. Fiscal progressive means investing in our values, investing in each other. I mean, investing in people and infrastructure and career creation. And if we do that, that will create a virtuous cycle that will increase our tax base to, again, reinvest. And one quick story is every few years, I did my MBA at MIT, and they send a group of kids out to visit Warren Buffett on his ranch in Omaha. And a few years before I got there, they asked him, if you had a time machine, you could go back in time and redo your career. What would you do? Would you invest in Coca-Cola as you did? Would you put all your money in Apple? Would you create mortgage-backed securities but then get out before the bubble burst? He said I would make a deal with the U.S. government. And I would say, you educate kids to the point where you feel your responsibility is done. I'll then take them and I'll educate them to their full potential, no matter what it takes. Pre-K, workforce training programs, community college, state school, you name it. But I get the difference on taxes they'll pay on their income for the rest of their lives. He would have captured a major portion of the U.S. GDP. And I think that's what I mean by fiscal progressive. If we invest in education, if we invest in infrastructure, if we invest in giving everyone opportunity, we will all benefit and we will be better off for it.
Wow, thank you. I think that will end my show. Before we end it, is there a special announcements you want to make to my audience out there? Anything to look out for?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, I'm proud to have been the candidate for lieutenant governor that was endorsed by the Boston Globe. Not an easy panel. It was a tough interview. Proud to be endorsed by the Boston Globe, and I would encourage people to check out my website, lelandcheung.com. It's a tricky spelling, LelandCheung.com, and I have the most robust website I think of anybody. Talk about a multitude of issues. You can chat me live from my website. My cell phone is listed there. Ever since I was first elected, my cell phone has been my personal cell phone has been publicly available, so that anyone in need of help or with an idea to share is able to reach me directly. And if I'm lieutenant governor, anyone out there will always be able to reach me directly. I'm not going to change my cell phone because otherwise my wife and my friends wouldn't be able to find me. So, but get out and vote September 9th. Leland Cheung for lieutenant governor. I would really appreciate it. And please check out my website. And I'm hoping to not just have people's vote, but have their partnership next year to work together to make a better Commonwealth.
Thank you, Leland, so much.
Thank you.
And also, you can check out my website for people in politics at www.princesdailyjournal.com. That's it for this edition for Prince in the City. For my guest, Leland Cheung, and for myself personally, Prince. This is Prince in the City here at UR Business Network. See you next time.